The Irrational Confidence Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it is week number 7. It is one of the flagship weeks of the college football season. It's a tentpole weekend. It's one of the best weekends. It's an absolutely loaded slate of games. We're going to break down some of the best games this weekend for you. I'm joined by my friend, my co-host, the man who always forgets a letter in the alphabet, but just won't tell me why. My co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
I'm excited. We have a loaded show tonight, loaded weekend coming up on Saturday. Games mean more and more as the season progresses along. These games become much more significant, especially if teams are in playoff hunts or conference championship hunts and that sort of thing. And getting rid of divisions now, games I think actually mean a little bit more because you are sort of positioning yourself in that conference ranking. It's something really, really exciting. I cannot wait to dive into our episodes tonight and go through all the games we have listed.
Yeah, folks, hey, before we even get rolling through, can you guys hit that subscribe button for us? Hit the notification bell. Get notified every single time we drop a new video. Had a really good recap episode this past week. Had a lot of great conversation on that regard. So don't miss out on any time that we drop a new episode. And for all of you guys who love college football, we put these episodes out each and every week. And with that being said, Fresh, that's all I'm going to roll with it. Let's roll into our first game of the weekend. Surprisingly, but maybe not surprisingly, this game won our fan vote over on the X. It's interesting, Fresh, because I thought that this might have scared away some people. We're talking about the University of Florida. They're traveling up to Rocky Mountain High. They're going up to Tennessee. It's a rivalry game for them. Tennessee is currently, at time of record, a 15.5-point favorite. Over-under is set at 55.5. Tennessee coming off that big loss to Arkansas last weekend. Florida putting the boots to UCF, who probably isn't very good this year, but screw Gus Malzahn. Fresh, what you got going on for me for Florida versus Tennessee in this rivalry game?
This is one of those more recent memory rivalries. Maybe taking like late 80s, 90s, especially with Spurrier and Fulmer all the way through. Becoming an SC, these two teams really, they were in contention. It's kind of carried on that lineage since then. Florida leads the all-time series 32-21. Florida actually owns the Vols in Gainesville, but this game's being played in Knoxville. So that mystique, will that even carry up to Rocky Top? I'm not sure. Gators won 11 straight between 2005 and 2015. And last year, in the swamp, Joe Milton, the quarterback, a terrible Florida team, and Florida beat the trash out of them. Maybe that was the beginning of the end for the Joe Milton experience. We all should have seen it right then and there, or that was just a, validation point for all of us that knew that Joe Milton stunk. But that was that's the Utah Open, or was that a signature win for Billy Napier?
Right.
The Vols have only won 3 times in the last 20 years in this matchup. 2004, 2016, and 2022 up on, 2 years ago up on Rocky Top to finally keep that 22 season going. Going back to 2000, the Vols have only been the higher ranked team 7 times. They are 3-4 in those games. 3 of those wins are in Knoxville. They're the higher ranked team in this game. The Vols offense lately has been kind of lacking. Josh Heupel the past few years putting up tons of points. Arkansas game, they were a complete no-show, especially Nico. I have not seen that passing attack that we were being told was amazing. He's been a Heisman candidate.
Right.
We kind of gave him a reprieve on the Oklahoma game because Oklahoma's defense is pretty solid. But now we've seen 2 SEC matchups in a row where they've been able to run the ball really well, playing great defense. Offensive lines look okay, but that passing attack has been average, mid. I don't want to say abysmal or putrid, but has not been everything we've been promised or had witnessed in the past where Hendon Hooker or Joe Milton would just sit back there and just chuck the ball around the yard. Maybe it's a good thing for Tennessee to play more of a run-focused offense, let Nico get comfortable. But at some point coming up, whether it's this Saturday or Alabama the weekend after or a couple weeks later where they play the Dogs down in Athens, Nico's going to have to throw the ball around a little bit and try to win the game with his arm. And we have not seen that passing attack come to fruition that we were promised with them loading up that receiver depth, score right through McCoy and then going into Portal and getting a couple other guys and adding in. They actually focus more on the running attack. So I want to see how this passing attack versus an average Florida secondary shows up. This is a major checkpoint. Also, is Tennessee looking ahead to Alabama, especially after Alabama losing to Vanderbilt? Is Tennessee looking ahead? Where's this team's focus at? Are they going to overlook Florida because Florida hasn't been that great, and they're going to look toward Alabama, or are they going to be focused on the task at hand because they just lost to Arkansas on the road? A lot of fortitude, a lot of mental toughness, a lot of where this program is at. This actually might be a turning point game for the Vols. We have all this hype. You go to Fayetteville, you lose a clunker of a game. You got Alabama coming in 2 weeks. How do you take care of business versus a Florida Gator team that is easy and ripe for the beating? If you can't get in here and dominate Florida, much less win, it's going to really raise questions if this team's actually all flash in the pan, smoke and mirrors. They put up tons of stats versus Kent State, etc. They're really actually built for a run. That's what we're going to find out a lot about the Vols on Saturday evening. Excuse me. On the other side, Florida, they kind of battened down the hatches. Now UCF came in with a lot of hype. The hype was taken away when they got smoked by Colorado, and that team looked pretty terrible against the Gators on Saturday. But Florida came out and looked respectable. They moved the ball. Their defense played well. There was a lot of angriness, a lot of hate, a lot of panic around the program right now. But the way they showed up and took care of business, which UCF, Gus Malzahn, KJ Jefferson, they could have come in there, and Harvey at running back, and they could have put the boots to them or at least beat them. And they were never a threat in that ballgame from the very start. So that just shows me maybe Billy Napier and that coaching staff maybe put something together, at least for one game, showed that they were able to move forward and be somewhat of a capable program, a capable football team. How does that team take that to this game? Right now it's a two quarterback system, Graham Mertz and Lagway, but Mertz definitely has played better. And Lagway has shown he's still a young, raw freshman quarterback and made some mistakes. The receivers have actually played a decent. Haven't really seen much of that running game consistently. Offensive line has their issues. Defense has been athletic, but there's still a lot of holes. How does this team handle the Vols? Are they ready to go try and win back-to-back? Are they getting it up for the game? Because you know what? They have nothing to lose. If they go up to Knoxville and get whooped, people are like, yep, saw that coming. If they go up there and play them tight, like, okay, maybe Billy's got the guys rallied. And if they go up there and pull up the upset, is that a job saver for Billy Napier, or at least gives them a cooler seat? I don't know, but it gives them some sort of stability of, hey, at least of all the teams in the league, they can beat Tennessee if they want to. So this is a program crossroads for both these schools. I want to see from the Vols, outside the passing game, I want to see that defense force some more turnovers and shorten the field. Arkansas had a lot of long drives late in that ball game, which keeping that thing alive. Can that Tennessee defense get after Lagway or Mertz, force some turnovers early, shorten the field, help Nico and that offense score more consistently? And their side from Florida, can y'all run the ball and sustain drives? Because Tennessee's defense has shown to be much improved. Can you get sustained drives? We didn't see it versus A&M. That team was terrible. But we saw some successes versus UCF. I'm not saying UCF's defense is anywhere near Tennessee's. I'm going to put Tennessee's defense more near A&M's. But can you show improvement and growth in this program? Can the coaching actually put some effort in there and get these guys to respond and put players in positions to be successful? And are the guys actually paying attention every single day in practice? I think Tennessee wins. They don't win by more than 10. This is going to be a closer game than most people think. I think Florida's going to play a lot higher. And Tennessee, as much as they want to say it, they're going to be mad about the Arkansas game, but they're still going to be looking ahead to Alabama. And winning 2 straight in Knoxville versus Alabama is something important to them. I think Florida has a chance to keep this in close. Like Tennessee pulls away late. It's going to be ugly. It will not be an impressive win. And it will actually tell me more about the Florida program in a positive, like they're actually competing, than it will tell me that Tennessee is a national title contender.
Yeah. Fresh, I'm glad that you called this a kind of a crossroads game between these two programs, because I do really think that it's a crossroads for both coaches on both sides here, Billy Napier and Josh Heupel. And I sat there thinking as you were talking, the first thing that popped in my head was the old Bone Thugs and Harmony song called Crossroads there. And then you take it starts off with saying, tell me what you're going to do when there ain't nowhere to run. Because neither one of these coaches have anywhere to run. And judgment's about ready to come down on these two coaches. And it's going to come for each one of them in a different fashion. It's no joke that Billy Napier is on the hot seat right now. And that seat is cooking. And I legitimately think if Florida had a person in the pipeline right now that they felt really strong about, that would come in there, take over the program, and lead that program going forward, it would have already been done. They would have gone interim coach. They would have announced this guy's taking over at the end of the season. They would have cut bait with Billy Napier already. I don't think they have that. Urban's not coming out of retirement. He likes the broadcasting job too much, and he likes spending time with his wife and family there.
Hanging out the bar with people who aren't his wife, but that's a different story.
Well, that's when he was with the NFL. But when you take a look at some of the other coaches that have been in Florida, Steve Spurrier's not walking through that door. He's not going to Gainesville. You're not going to take any of the retreads. So who are you truly going to get? That's kind of in the rock and the hard place that Florida is, that they're in right now. But you made a good point when you said that this could be a game where Billy Napier kind of saves his job. Tennessee's offense has been underwhelming lately. And it's kind of like a weird thing because they have some serious talent on that football team. You know, you talk about Samson, what he's been doing. Nico came in with all this hype, and the receivers were solid over there. The defense has actually been the most impressive thing for Tennessee. And for years, we were kind of questioning when Tennessee would add that second piece. That's where I think the opportunity lies with Billy Napier here. If he can go into Knoxville and get this win over the Vols, that game, you know, you got the game against Kentucky still. You're definitely going to beat Florida State. All of a sudden, now you're bowl eligible. Not to talk about, like, if you can especially play defense on this and you can play some better defense, LSU is beatable as well. So now we're talking where at times we're saying, man, Billy Napier's going to have a really hard time getting bowl eligible. And now we're starting to go, is it really that, or is he actually going to be able to pull the tail up on this and go 6-6, 7-5?
Mm-hmm.
It's intriguing to see what Florida's going to do throughout the month of October. They had a nice win against UCF. They have this rivalry game against the Vols, and then they end the month and go in. I think it's like the first day of November. I think it's November 1st or November 2nd is the cocktail party in Jacksonville. You know, you have a big moment where you could get a huge win in Knoxville for Billy Napier. You end the season or end this month in time frame. I shouldn't say season, but you end this time frame in another huge rivalry game, you know, where you have people coming in on boats or RVs or driving in. You're tailgating, drinking, playing cornhole, eating Juicy Lucy burgers on the dock. You're doing all of those fun things outside the game, and then you go in and you're competitive. That kind of energizes that fan base again. That gets that fan base mobilized. Maybe they start making some changes with the NIL. The point I'm making is that there's opportunity for Billy Napier here to maybe really cool down the temperature of his seat. On the opposite end of the spectrum, it's Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel's been known as this offensive guru, and his seat has been cool because of, you know, Hendon Hooker was having a great year, goes down with an ACL. Joe Milton, we really weren't a huge fan of Joe Milton, but Nico was way too young to start, so you go through that whole year. They're still competitive. They weren't as good, but all this hype was surrounding Nico, and it started off big this year, and then all of a sudden, the air's left out of the balloon. And now all of a sudden, you're starting to go, well, hey, you fixed the defense, but now the offense is all jacked up. What are you going to do with it? I don't like this because I've become a big Josh Heupel fan. I like Josh Heupel. I think I've said on the podcast a few times, I've met him a few times. He's a great dude. I really enjoy my interaction with him in those meetings. But for some reason, I think Tennessee's going to lose this game. I think Florida's going into Knoxville and pulling off the game. The one concern I have is that they're running that 2-quarterback system right now. And the old adage that said, when you think you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have none. I don't trust DJ. I don't trust Graham Mertz. I would actually probably trust DJ Lagway a little bit more. Let the kid go through it all. Let him go through it all. I mean, look at where we're at with Nico. You could be at the same place with DJ Lagway. And again, I think Billy Napier just needs to pull out all the stops and do whatever he can. I don't know why I feel this way, because everything in my gut should tell me, Tennessee, and they got the better defense. And I still think that there's a lot of ineptitude on Florida's offensive side of the football. But I just got this weird sinking suspicion that Florida's going to pull off a random upset. I would rather Tennessee win. Tennessee fans, I'm not rooting against you here. I just got that weird pit in my stomach feeling. And I hope I'm wrong about that.
Now, quickly, I know we've talked about this game a lot. When you watch the Oklahoma-Tennessee game and when you watch the Arkansas-Tennessee game, did it seem to you that the Vols just had no energy? There was no fire on the team. They kind of just going through the motions. There was there was just never all right, that dude's the leader. He's the alpha on this team. He's leading them. Everyone's kind of looking for someone to take them in the right direction and bring them all together. There hasn't been that moment yet.
Yeah, I want some guy who's going to get in my face, pump me up, and maybe headbutt me with my helmet, with our helmets on, and just really get me really pumped up for a football game. I'm waiting to see that on either side here. I'm really not seeing that from any place. And maybe, Florida's been through a rough start for the beginning of this year, and then Tennessee's kind of coming down on expectations. I don't know, but I think you're spot on when you're saying that there's no energy with either football program.
Yeah.
So, all right, Fresh, let's go to another. This one's a great game. So take me home, country roads. That John Denver, he's a smart man. He's wonderful. One of our favorite places in all of college football to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to the wonderful, the absolutely fantastic, but you can't burn couches there. So remember that it is a felony. We're going to Morgantown, West Virginia. The Iowa State Cyclones. Ooh, not Hawkeyes. Iowa State Cyclones.
In trouble.
I would get in trouble for that. I corrected myself quick enough. They're 5-0. They're 5-0 right now. They're second in the Big 12, tied with BYU. Interesting thing with the Cyclones here, Fresh. But then you take a look at West Virginia. They're 3-2 on the year. They start off with that really rough loss versus Penn State. They lose on the road to Pittsburgh in an absolute classic of a game. We knew that there's talent on this Mountaineers team. We thought that they may be a little bit better, that a lot of breaks would have to go their way, but they could be a dark horse playoff contender. Iowa State is starting to creep into that weird area that Matt Campbell struggles with here, Fresh. When there's no expectations on Iowa State, things go really, really well for them. The minute you start stacking those expectations and they start getting the press clippings, like you like to say, Iowa State has a tendency to, lay a dud here. So at the time of record, Iowa State, and I don't like this piece either, Iowa State is a 3-point road favorite in Morgantown. Over under is 52.5. Fresh, what do you got with Iowa State, West Virginia?
Well, right off the bat, does Iowa State have enough offense to compete in a track meet?
Right.
Beckett quarterback has been, I would say, a poor man's or young Brock Purdy. He doesn't have the swagger late in games that Brock Purdy had because we had Brocktober, but he's able to efficiently operate Matt Campbell's offense within the system. Jalen Noel, good, very solid receiver, good playmaker at that position. And then a triumvirate of running backs, Jalen Johnson, Abu Samad II, and Carson Hansen have all been pretty successful in the ground game. They're all going to have to play an elite effort. On top of that, the offensive line is going to have to show up and make big plays for this team to function at a high level. Coming into this ball game, the Cyclones have scored 21 or less points in 3 of their 5 games. That is not going to get the job done. You're not beating West Virginia 20-13 or 17-10. You have got to show up and score at least 27 points with the defense they have, at least 27 in this ball game to be in that ballpark to win. So this offense is going to have to be effective, deal with the crowd noise. It's a night game. It's not a noon kickoff in Morgantown. It is a night kickoff, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. It's going to be loud. It's going to be intense. You've got to have to manage your expectations. This is not even going to Iowa City and playing the Hawkeyes at 3:30 in September. This is a different environment. How are you focused, ready to go, being undefeated, having the pressure where West Virginia has nothing to lose? On the other side, Iowa State's defense is absolutely amazing. Iowa State's defense has allowed 21 or less points in every game. So if they can get into 22, they're probably winning. You got to trust your defense is probably going to give up 24 or less, maybe 27. And against West Virginia, the offense is pretty solid. This is probably going to be the best offense they're going to face all year, at least up to this point. So if you can gauge the Iowa State defense to give 27 or less, means you just have to get 4 drives, 4 touchdowns, 28-27. That has got to be your focus, Matt Campbell. That has got to be your focus for the offense. We need 4 solid drives, and we've got to finish with touchdowns. If you start getting in a field goal kicking contest with West Virginia, eventually they're going to stumble into a touchdown or not. Your defense is not, for lack of a better term, last year's Michigan, the 2021 Dogs, the 85 Bears for that matter. It's not that lights out where you're shutting people down. You're still going to have some holes. You're going to have to score some points in this ballgame. Both being undefeated in the league, and like I said, there's no East-West anymore, so it's pretty wide open. Well, the Big 12's always been straightforward the past few years, but you've got to just keep churning through and getting W's. Whatever your non-conference record really, was, doesn't really have much bearing going forward. You just need to focus on the task at hand. If the winner of this ball game is going to really put themselves in a solid driver's seat at 3-0 with 6 games to go, having yourself a tiebreaker over, a significant team in the race, and really stacks up nicely going forward. West Virginia has scored 32 or more points in every game except for the opener versus Penn State. This offense has found their footing after that stumbling affair during the opening weekend. They have had a tough loss to Pitt. I think that made them battle tested. They should have won that game, but they had some late lapse on defense late in the ball game. They have wins over Kansas, wins over Oklahoma State, which on paper coming into the year, we were probably, man, those are great wins. Oklahoma State's been a dud and Kansas is 1-5. So are those really great wins? Or are they just beating teams that were dysfunctional, injury prone, beat up, not mentally right there and focused? I'm going to say somewhere in between where there's talent, but they just got, maybe the will was taken from them early in the ballgame. They weren't able to finish the drill. So we're going to find out about West Virginia if that opener versus Penn State was a complete aberration and they just have been struggling to find their groove, and they just beaten bad teams and they're just lucky enough to be where they are, be 2-1 in the league. Garrett Green, the more experienced quarterback, Jaheim White, running back, 2 solid players, solid offensive line for the Mountaineers. They've all, like we mentioned earlier with Iowa State, you've got to score points. Iowa State's defense is great. It means the offensive line's got to execute. They've got to block, get to their gaps, seal off, and let the running backs let Garrett Green be magic and do their thing. Sustain drives, limit the turnovers, use the crowd as your extra person. We always talk about 12th man, crowd voice, but in this case, it's going to help. If you can keep yourself in the football game, that crowd's going to stay alive. And late in the fourth quarter, if it's even a close ball game, that defense might have issues, or your defense will get the benefit of that extra crowd noise boosting up and bringing it toward their offense. So keep yourself in the ball game. Don't act like the Penn State game. The Penn State game, you showed up weak, you showed up timid, you showed up scared, and you let the Penn State offense just run the ball and throw the ball right down your throat. We had questions about the Penn State passing attack. They looked like it was practice in the opening week. I think West Virginia played too tight. This game, you've got to play loose. You have nothing to lose. You're playing an undefeated team at home. Do not be scared. Be aggressive. Play, focus football. Play disciplined football, but attack all night. If you attack, you're going to beat Iowa State. I know we have a soft spot for West Virginia. I know I also really, really respect Matt Campbell, so this is a very tough game to have in this game. I just think Iowa State's played so fine-tuned perfect, and I mentioned it with the points allowed and points scored per game, that they're bound for a clunker on one of those sides, where they have a no-show on offense or the defense just doesn't travel. Should they have lost to Iowa? I still think they should have lost to Iowa. That second half comeback was a miracle. They've played with fire. I think that comes to an end here. I think West Virginia pulls off the upset. I'm going to say 30-24 final. Mountaineers take the dub, keep themselves in the Big 12 race, and really, I think any of that talk about Neil Brown going back to the hot seat after the rough start was in the big loss for Penn State.
Come
I think
on.
he completes, puts that away. He's recycled, got himself firmly locked in as the head coach there in West Virginia. And, they're able to move forward, to next Saturday and keep themselves alive. So, let's go Mountaineers. Let's go drink some beers.
Yeah. Fresh. Here's the interesting thing that I was looking at with this game. Iowa State's defense, you're spot on with saying that they're a really, really strong defense, but it's a lopsided strong defense. They have a phenomenal defensive backfield right there and a nice pass rush here that is really preventing teams from throwing the football on them. The problem is that West Virginia is not going to throw the football a ton on you. They're going to do it enough to keep you balanced. We're not talking about like an Army, Navy, Air Force type of attack where you throw the ball less than 10, 15 times a game. But we are talking that West Virginia is going to run the football between White, Donaldson, and Green there. Iowa State is letting up 138 yards per game on the ground. That's one of the areas. If Iowa State gives up that many rushing yards in this football game, it's going to be a celebration in Morgantown. These running backs and quarterback are going to run all over that Iowa State defense there. Iowa State, and I like Matt Campbell a lot, and that's where I have such a hard time with this piece because he is a really, really solid football coach. He has built Iowa State into a consistent winner in a program that if I'm an Iowa State alumni, I'm damn proud of what that man's doing over there. I'm excited to wear my Cyclone gear and all of that stuff. And I kind of feel the same way about Neil Brown. Like, he had a rough start of it. You came from Troy, you had a rough start. People thought you were going to be one of the first coaches fired. And what did you do? You pulled yourself off the mat. You're no longer on the hot seat. And I think I'm with you on this, Fresh. I think West Virginia is going to win this game. I think that they're going to be able to run the football at Iowa State. Again, these first two games, I have this weird gut feeling that the team that is the underdog, I think we're going to see some early upsets in these football games. They're going to come away with these wins, and people are going to go, why did they win? And it's kind of a gut feeling on that. Iowa State should win this football game. They should. They're better. They're probably the better team. But I think the one thing that they could improve upon through the remainder of the season is something that West Virginia does well. So I think West Virginia's win this game. I'm going to go a 31-24 game. I'm going to go a touchdown game there. Iowa State's going to be really a tough team on them, but I just think that they're going to score just enough off of them. I think they're going to blow past that point marker that you said at, and you're going to have a bunch of West Virginia fans, at 2 a.m, being face down or screaming and still celebrating in their apartment complex in the grass, just having a really good time running around. I think this would be an amazing game to be at. If this was a game where it wasn't like a loaded weekend and you didn't have Red River or anything, I think this would be a really, really fun game that we would attend if that was possible.
I mean, the Big 12 is going to always be chaos. I think that's the fun part about it, where that's where I think it's going to be very tough for them to get two teams in the playoff because they're going to beat each other up. You don't have three elite teams who are just going to head and shoulders better than everybody else. The parity across the board is so strong that, like BYU, Iowa State, they're going to get one or two losses along the way, and they're going to have games that are clunkers because they're playing great teams across the board. The BYU smoking Kansas State, and they're kind of like, oh my God, that just happened. And now we all love BYU. BYU could be the next team, or Iowa State could be this team this week, or it just cycles. We all thought Arizona was going to be great this year. We thought Oklahoma State was going to be great. We thought Kansas was going to be great. They all stink. So it's just the Big 12 is just going to beat each other up across the board. And that is where every single one of these games is much more magnified because of the impact.
Right. Yeah, and Utah and Arizona State are both 4-1. They're playing on Friday night.
Yeah, it's a constant round robin of who's going to survive in the end.
Yeah, and that's a debate for a later day. I still think they have a good shot at getting 2 in because if I'm a committee member, you just made the point for me to put 2 teams in going, you have some quality in the Big 12 and they beat themselves up. Let's give it a second. Well, I think that they would struggle figuring out who the second team is because of
that's
that.
the biggest problem. There won't be a consensus number 2.
But I think that debate would be really good in saying, well, maybe we really need to figure out who that second team is going to be because of all the chaos that's gone through there. All right, Fresh, our third game this weekend, the Ole Miss Rebels, they're traveling down on the bayou, going to LSU. Fresh, you know what the tailgate scene is going to be, bourbon and crawfish.
Bourbon and crawfish. That place is going to be smelling really, really good all day.
Fresh loves his bourbon and crawfish. But LSU and Ole Miss are facing off down at LSU. Right, again, another road favorite here. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite in this game. Over-under set at 63.5. There may not be a whole lot of defense played in this football game. That over still might come in there. Fresh, Ole Miss rebounds off that loss to Kentucky. They beat up a lesser South Carolina team. You take a look at what LSU is doing right now. Last game was against Southern Alabama. I don't know, Fresh. Where do you see this one going here? Because LSU feels like that they're in no man's land in the SEC.
Well, last year's game was almost 100 points, over 100 points, like over 1,000 yards total offense, something like that. It was just insane.
Right.
I don't think we'll get that much because we don't have Jay Daniels on the field with Brian Thomas Jr. or Malik Neighbors, running each of the, parallel to each other on the field. But we will see a lot of points scored. This is going to be the biggest test for Les Miles. His first year, pulled off the upset at home versus Nick Saban, Alabama, because he had nothing to lose. Nobody expected the LSU team to beat Alabama. They went there.
In Brian Kelly?
Brian Kelly, yeah. And they were able to get to the SEC championship game. This year, we haven't seen anything up to this point of what Brian Kelly and that entire LSU football team is going to do consistently. We saw a lot of offense last year. We saw future defense. They were like, They went to the Outback Bowl or whatever the heck they call it now. When is this program truly going to become LSU? Be a dominant football team, consistently show growth on offense and show an aggressive attack on defense. We didn't see it in the opener versus USC. We saw them get lucky as heck at South Carolina. They played okay versus UCLA, but the defense still stunk. They had 2 90-yard drives, which was okay, whatever. And then South Alabama, they scored. But we haven't seen this team with the swagger, with the dominant aspect, winning games, feeding off that environment there in Death Valley. It's just something that, eventually we've got to see why Brian Kelly was brought down there. We have not seen an offensive line truly dominate an opponent. We've not seen a ground game. We've not seen a defense. We've just seen a fat guy in a polo with an LSU logo on it. I want to see from this team and from this program, have they actually grown to become a feared team that we know this program to be? Or are they just a logo, and for lack of a better term, a paper tiger? This is their chance. Ole Miss they look like trash versus Kentucky. They managed pretty well versus South Carolina. I haven't still anything that screams to me that this is an elite, college football playoff team. Their defense is okay, and their offense still against South Carolina put up 27 points, 24 points. I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to see them in a true dogfight again on the road and see if they can win. I want to see if, this LSU defense without Harold Perkins, who's going to step up and try to shut down Jackson Dart and Harris and that group of running backs and that offensive line, that tight end, group. Where's Lane Kiffin's head at? Does he actually act more aggressive? Does he actually act tough? We mentioned it in the offseason. He went to the portal to get offensive defensive linemen because he saw when he played Alabama and Georgia last year, he got destroyed at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Has he toughened up? Because there are some decent offensive linemen for LSU and some defensive players on that front seven who are going to go to the NFL. And how does your squad stack up and get things done when the pressure's on? And can you show up week in and week out and show growth and show improvement? Yeah, you have the skill players, you have the flash, but where's that nitty gritty in the line of scrimmage, in the grit that's going to be lasting and more impressionable? I still have no faith in Jackson Dart. Garrett Nussmeier is a solid manager. Jackson Dart, I just don't. He looks like a pretty boy kid who just won't get it done in the grit situations. He won't make the big boy throw on third down late in the ball game. He won't go and dive for that ball. He just doesn't seem that kind of leader quarterback. He's a frat boy under center, and I just don't trust it. I think Ole Miss is still too flashy. As much as I can't stand Brian Kelly, I think that there's enough pride with the Tigers in being at night that LSU behind, I think Caleb Durham's a great running back. They will run the ball right down Ole Miss's throat all night long, left, right, and above, and they will win 34-27, and effectively end Ole Miss's playoff hopes, and keep LSU alive. Not for an SEC title, but definitely for a playoff spot.
Fresh, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you feel like Jackson Dart's stats have kind of been like, while they're
inflated.
They're inflated. Yeah. And you're just kind of like, okay, great. Do you put up stats against really bad teams? And then what are you going to do against LSU? Like, LSU's defense is average, mediocre at best. And again, I'd argue this with LSU. You're +1 in the turnover difference. When in our lifetime, only maybe in the last couple of years, has LSU ever been an even +1, +2 turnover team ever? It's a team that prides themselves on the defense, getting teams to turn the football over, getting pressure after the quarterback, and I'm not seeing that out of the LSU defense. Again, you're right. I don't have a whole lot of faith with Ole Miss. I think that they're a good team. They're a middle of the road team. I think that they might be regretting some of their decisions. Again, Judkins leaving, going to Ohio State. But, what do they do? Where are they going to get their marquee, hang their hat on this win when they play Alabama? Is that's going to be it, Ole Miss? Like, all right, you lose to LSU, and you're right. Your playoff hunt is pretty much over. You'll wind up at probably one of the off playoff bowl games that are pretty nice, but yeah, your playoff time is pretty much over here. LSU, you picked yourself off the mat. You lost your opening weekend game to USC, which that loss is looking a lot worse now, but you're picking yourself up. Brian Kelly has got an opportunity to do something here. You're able to get a top win, improve the LSU defense. You're showing yourself. You're able to, we are a different team than we were last year. Here's the interesting thing, though, Fresh. You brought up Les Miles earlier in this, and since 2000, under Les Miles, and going all the way now, LSU is 65-6 at night in Death Valley. Let that sink in for a second. They have over a 90% winning percentage in Death Valley at night. I'm rolling with the Tigers in this one, man. 9 out of 10 times I'm gonna be right, apparently. So guess what? I like those odds. If the 10% or 8% hits on the different time, so be it. I'm going with the 90% odds here. I'm going LSU to win this football game. I actually think that it's going to be like a 34-20 game. I think that it's going to be a substantial win by LSU. And I think LSU is going to kind of see themselves vaunted back up. But the hard part that they're going to have for a committee member, a person like me, I'm going to sit there and say, that's a very nice win, LSU. Good job out of you. You did a great job. Yeah, but factor going, yeah, but you still have that USC loss, and you need USC to be better to make that look good, because you didn't have it. And that's hard to kind of sit there on your resume with USC struggling the way they are.
Yeah, they need this marquee win. Like, this has to be locked in the bag for the Tigers, because if you lose to Ole Miss, I think then Brian Kelly's supposed to come get some heat. Like, the fan
Right.
base is going to erupt because, your team early on didn't look, UCLA is a terrible football team. You look average early on in that ball game. You got lucky. Let's call a spade a spade. You got lucky for South Carolina, and you lost to an average USC team at best. There are problems right there at Baton Rouge. Everything that your pedigree from Notre Dame is not carried down to the Bayou, and you've got to find a way to get yourself a stellar big win now, to carry this forward and keep the momentum going for the Tigers.
Yeah, though I will give the Tigers credit, Swinson and Jones for them. That pass rush is starting to look a little bit better there as well. And then, if we didn't have Brian Williams, who, if you didn't know, is 17, I'm getting tired of people just reminding me constantly of that, and Jeremiah Smith, we would really be talking about Trey Harris and what he's doing down there at Ole Miss. 52 catches already on the year, almost 900 yards. Kid's impressive. Kid's impressive.
They know how to put stats up there in Oxford.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's go to maybe one of the more, opinionated games that we'll have this year. We're going to Boulder, Colorado. Coach Prime. Colorado is 4-1 this year. They're 2-0 as well in the Big 12. They're going to be hosting the visiting Kansas State Wildcats. At time of record, Kansas State is a 4-point road favorite. This is the third out of 4 games, Fresh. We have had 3 road favorites. It scares me a little bit with those road favorites there, but where are you seeing? Over-under in this game is 56.5 points. I think Coach Prime is starting to put everything together and might be starting to meet where expectations were last year, but I don't think he's going to get to that upper level there, Fresh. Kansas State has looked good, but again, there's still questions over there. What do you got for these two?
Well, up to this point, Colorado, you mentioned Coach Prime, Shedeur, Travis Hunter, et cetera, they don't have that marquee win in this program. If you're going to call them beating TCU last year in the opener in an offensive shootout, or beating Nebraska last year as a marquee win, you're on the Kool-Aid. You're really just drinking something. You're oblivious to the whole situation. If you even think that them blowing out UCF a couple of weeks ago was a marquee win, you're on something. They need this to really define who they are, because right now it's an amazing, uber talented player in Travis Hunter, an athletic quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, and then Coach Prime and Warren Sapp on the sideline. That's who the Colorado Buffaloes are. They are flash and flame. They're Hollywood. They're Gucci, whatever. They have not shown me to be able to beat a good football team. And here's your chance at home versus a very scrappy, disciplined, aggressive, hard-hitting, talented football team. Coach Kleiman and the Wildcats coming into Boulder on a mission. Their last road game, they went to BYU and got smacked around. I guarantee they're not going to come in overlooking CU like they might have overlooked or were not prepared for BYU. This is your chance, though, Colorado. If you want to go out there, you need to let everything hang out, throw the ball around the yard, run, block, and tackle. Show me you have grown up. Show me you can play defense. Show me you can cover gaps. Show me you can wrap up and tackle. Someone other than Travis Hunter on the defense doing something productive. Someone on the offense consistently other than Shedeur and Travis Hunter doing something productive. Not 1 or 2 plays here or there. I need multiple attacks, multiple plays. We've got to see growth offensively under Shermer. We've got to see growth defensively and make it consistent week in and week out. This is your last chance, because I guarantee you right now, Colorado's going to be terrible next year when Shedeur and Travis Hunter leave. This is their time to shine. They've got to fulfill it. They've got to grow and they've got to get it done, because their 2 meal tickets to keep this team really growing and moving forward are going to be in the NFL. So you have to strike while the iron's hot right now. You've got to be aggressive, but you also have to treat this Kansas State game like you opener versus North Dakota State. They are going to run the football. They're going to be physical. You have got to learn from that experience and be prepared for the Wildcats when they come to town. Looking at Kansas State, I mentioned the BYU trip. They opened with 2 lanes. They're road tested. This is not a challenge. They are going to be ready for the experience, ready for the hostile environment, knowing what they do. They are very battle tested. They are locked in, and they are going to play a solid game plan of run the football, tackle, keep people in front of you, double coverage Hunter, and force everything to be used around the field. Force the door to find other receivers and keep the drives alive. K-State defense, they shut down Noah Fafita and McMillan when they came to Manhattan a couple weeks ago. They faced a solid mobile quarterback and a ultra uber talented wide receiver before. I'm going to say Shador and Hunter are better than McMillan and Fafita as an overall comparison, but they're not that much better. You have to use that experience. It's close. I think Shador's a little better than Fafita, but Hunter's better than McMillan are about a toss-up. So
yeah,
you have to use that as a gauge of we've done it here. We've just got to make sure our game's a little bit better and take it up a notch for this game. If they do that, they're in great shape. If Travis Hunter gets loose, it could be a day. Avery Johnson is actually the dark horse in this football game. He's not going to get the shining light of the quarterback position, but he has some solid skills. Much more of a runner than a thrower. But if his legs get going, can that Colorado defense rein him in? Can they tackle on, first time up? Or are they going to let him shred them on the ground? And then also let that play action, that boot up, and eventually they start putting eyes on the backfield and paying attention to him and letting K-State receivers get open in the secondary. He is the weapon that's got to be successful if they're going to keep this winning streak going, or if they're going to keep this game going for Kansas State and find a way to get a W and stay in contention for the Big 12 title. If he makes some unorthodox throws or tries to think too much and tries to be too much of a passer as opposed to a runner, that could be the downfall. He's just got to do his game. Use your feet. Let the passing game when you need it on third down or here sprinkle in some second downs, but use your feet and be productive. You have DJ Giddens also in the backfield, a very solid running back. The two of you can right there, a 1-2 punch, dominate, keep it going. This Colorado defense is not an elite defense. You have opportunities to move the football. You do not try to get cocky with the offense. Don't try to do too much. Chains, down the distance. Keep Shador and Travis offensively on the sideline. And that's the best way you're going to be able to win. If you limit their possessions and limit their explosiveness and wear that Colorado defense out. I think it's a slow starting ball game. I think both teams will be in it, but in the second half, I just trust Kansas State. I trust Kleinman, the coaching staff, too much, and I think they find ways to pull it out. I'm going to say 34-30 Kansas State late in the ball game. They'll grind it out and pull it away. But it'll be a fun one to watch, and it'll definitely show Colorado growing as a program from where they were early in the year, even last year.
Yeah, I think growth is a great way to describe what we're seeing out of this Colorado program. And again, I've never thought that Coach Prime was a bad coach. He's unorthodox and he's different than everybody else. But college football is littered with guys who are different coaches or did things a unique way. He's utilizing the transfer portal. It's interesting. You asked about who's going to step up other than Travis Hunter in this football game for the Buffs. You take a look at LeJontay Wester. He's got 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games. It looks like he, right now, is developing that number 2 chemistry that when Travis Hunter is double teamed or anything like that, that you got another option to go to there. This K-State team is really good, and I do like Avery Johnson a lot. But again, you brought up a point that really kind of bugs me a little bit is that he has become, almost a little, I won't say too much, but a little bit too dependent on his legs by just a hair. I would like for him to run just a little bit less, not a ton. I mean, if you're a dual threat quarterback, the pocket breakdown, absolutely take off and go. There's time and a place for design quarterback runs. I just think that you maybe need to dial it back a touch more. Go with Giddens, go with Edwards over there as well. get that run game going for Kansas State. Kansas State is a really good, their defense is really solid, but it is on running the football. Colorado's not going to run the football a whole bunch. They're going to throw the ball all over the yard in this one. I actually really like the over in this game. I actually feel like the over is going to come in here, not by a ton. I think maybe like 58, 59 points is kind of close to where I'm feeling this one. But I hate to say this. I think that we're going to respect Colorado at the end of this game, but I feel like K-State is going to win exactly by the spread. I think it's going to be like a 4-point football game. Not going to really guess a score. I'll go like a 29-25, like a weirdo score like that. But this is going to be where we walk away saying, okay, Colorado is making improvements. Yeah, are they a top 20 team, top 15 team? No. Are they better than where they were 2 years ago? Hell yeah.
I think from a physicality standpoint, like North Dakota State and Nebraska are good litmus tests for them. You've had those two affairs. How do you adjust and show improvement? I think UCF, they're more of a flash kind of specialty offense, specialty team, very similar to Colorado. So that wasn't a physical combat situation. Those other two games were. How do they've shown growth in those two and learning experiences to be prepared for a brawl, a blue-collar brawl in Boulder?
Absolutely. All right, Fresh, let's go to another game. We're going all the way out to the West Coast. It's the team I ranked number 3, and the group text message was phenomenal for that one, too. The Penn State Nittany Lions, they're 5-0 on the season. They're a 5.5-point road favorite. Again, another road favorite here. They're traveling out to play the men of Troy. Over-under at time of record is set at 50.5 there. Fresh, we talked a little bit this extensively about how Penn State has let us down. But the thing I was thinking about all this week after our recap episode was James Franklin is notorious for winning these type of games. He's not notorious for he's going to lose to teams like Ohio State and previous years Michigan. He's going to lose to teams that are going to be a top 10, 12 team. But he doesn't lose a bunch of clunkers against teams he's supposed to beat. I don't know. They have the running backs there. Drew Alars look better. I'll give the Penn State defense a lot of credit, though. That Penn State defense has been lights out at times and just snuffed people out to death out there. And any passing attack there. I don't know. What do you got for this one? Penn State versus USC.
USC stinks. You lost to Minnesota. Not the Vikings, folks. The Golden Bleeping Gophers.
Row the boat, man.
There's no boat. There's a piece of like a plywood up there. Like, come on.
It's the land of 10,000 lakes. There's boats in Minnesota.
There's not many. They're not running. They're not functioning correctly up there. And you lost to them. If you want to be this big time elite program and flash and pan of all over Hollywood, you don't go to Minnesota and lose to PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers. That right there is a statement on your program that just shows that you're a bunch of frauds. And actually it makes LSU look worse. We talked about that earlier because you beat them. You went to Michigan and you choked away against an average Michigan football team. You were out physical at the front of the line of scrimmage. And maybe that's it. You still haven't solved your problem. LSU tried to get fancy instead of run the ball down your throat in the opener. And now we all sort of believe that USC was legit. You go up to the big house. You got dominated line of scrimmage, especially in your defensive front seven, who got run over by the Michigan offensive line. And then what did Minnesota do? They did the exact same thing. They ran the ball down your throat. They owned the line of scrimmage. Penn State is better than Minnesota. And I'm going to say Penn State's front seven probably the same right now as Michigan's right this year based on the depth. You better watch out, boys. Men of Troy, you're about to be the boys of Troy. You're about to get destroyed. You've got to show up and batten down the hatches, figure stuff out, and show us something that you're tough. Show us you have some mental fortitude. Or the season could technically be over on Saturday afternoon. This is Lincoln Riley. Ever since you've been at USC, even with Caleb Williams, your teams are average, and we already kind of knew there was a lot of holes, and they've gotten worse. That first year, if you made the playoff, you would have gotten smoked. You were actually probably blessed by losing to Utah because they were physical and they played defense, and they actually kept you from getting blown out in the playoff. You go in and get embarrassed by Tulane. Last year, average at best. It all came out in the wash. And this year, you don't have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback to save you. Your receivers are Woody Marks has been okay at the running back spot. Your offensive line is Your defense fooled us. Week 1, we thought your defense was finally fixed. That's obviously not the case. It's the same old paper Tigers or paper Trojans in this case. Lincoln Riley, you've been revealed to be a fraud. Like it's, like Maury, it just shows like, and you're a fraud. It's like, you're the fraud, but you're the fraud. And it continues to keep being revealed week in and week out. You have done nothing to improve this program. You've been giving unlimited resources, transfer portal, throwing money around, high rises, condos downtown. You're still not getting done on the field. That's fine. You can throw all the money around you want to get transfers there or recruits straight out of high school. But when it comes down to it, your coaching, your development, your play on the field is just average. It is C best. It is not A. And if you don't get that organized by Saturday, you're going to get blown out of the Coliseum and your season will be over. You'll just be playing for whatever. Because this Penn State team knows if they get this win, they're probably going to lock themselves in at least as an 11 seed in the playoff. Because after that, they have Oregon and Ohio State or Oregon and Michigan?
No, they just have Ohio
Oregon.
State. No, they just have Ohio State on their schedule.
Well, then they're locked in.
Yeah, they get Ohio State at home.
I don't think Wisconsin will give much of a fight. For some reason, I thought they played Oregon. And, Penn State's they're locked in. If they go out there and just take care of USC, and they know that. You get this game locked in, go out there and dominate, you are going to be sitting in the playoff ready to go. And that should be some motivation right there for James Franklin, because if he does lose this game or this team doesn't make the playoff, peers are asking questions about him. We've been asking him for a long time. But I think the talent on offense, the talent on defense, this Penn State football team will go out to Southern California and have zero issues with the Trojans. It might be over at halftime. This could be a resounding big time win for James Franklin and Nittany Lions. If they come out there and run the ball down the throat, because I see nothing from this football team on the USC side that can show they can tackle running backs and lock down and cover gaps in the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be left, right, and above for that running back combination and a lot of play action, hit a couple big throws, but Penn State will dominate USC and USC's season. Recruits will decommit, and Penn State will keep themselves alive and put themselves in a playoff spot.
Fresh, just so I clear, did you just say paper Trojans?
Yes.
I thought that Trojans only used like wood or latex or rubber to build things out of. I didn't know we would have.
I was trying to build
Trojans.
off the paper tiger, paper Trojans. We're going to say faulty latex Trojans. I don't want to go down that road.
Well, paper Trojans just sounds straight up unsafe there, but
don't recommend it at all.
I would just, listen, to each their own. You're right on this offensive line with USC. I think that they were exposed in the game against the Wolverines there, and the Wolverines do have two guys who are NFL ready pass rushers. But with this team, you got a guy like King for Penn State. You have a guy like Carter for Penn State. Those two dudes get after the quarterback. I mean, they get after the quarterback. Penn State's got 13 sacks on the year already. I would not be shocked if Miller Moss gets sacked at least 4 or 5 times. Don't be surprised if he takes maybe 9, 10 quarterback hits. They are really going to need to do everything they can to protect him in this game, especially in the pocket there. I almost think that USC needs to keep a tight end in on every single play, and maybe even a running back as well, because Penn State knows what they can do. They can pin their ears back, they can get after Miller Moss, and then let the secondary play press coverage, and you're really only having to cover for 3-4 seconds there. There's a good opportunity for Penn State to look really good in this football game. I also think that we're going to see one of those games where Drew Allard's not going to throw the football very much. I think they're going to get a heavy dose of Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. I think that both of those running backs are going to have a big day in this football game because, again, we saw with our own two eyes exactly what the Wolverines were able to do, especially late in the fourth quarter. Yeah, okay, you stop them, you get them off the field for a couple drives in the first, but all Penn State's going to do is throw. It's like a boxing match. They're going to throw body blows, the whole thing, wear you down, and then they're going to start swinging haymakers and run away with this football game. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be over at halftime. I really don't know with that piece. But what I'll say this, Fresh, is I think this game is over by the end of the third quarter. I think we feel like this is in hand. You can turn it off, put it to bed, say goodnight, and throw away your paper Trojans.
Well, I mean, USC is not going to be facing an Alex Orji or Davis Warren at quarterback. So that's what kept them in the ball game because they played so terribly up in Ann Arbor. They're going to get Drew Allard's not going to make as many of those mistakes. So that right there is going to – they're going to have to be a lot more appropriate. They're not going to be given the free gifts to keep them or to have them be able to propel themselves back in the ball game and eventually take a lead but then lose it. So this is where that line of scrimmage, that tackling, that defense for USC has got to show up and have a game of their lives. And funny enough, opener, I took LSU to beat USC. USC won the game. I took USC to beat Michigan. Michigan won. I took USC to beat Wisconsin. That's the only game that USC actually showed up and survived and actually covered. So
they're losing at halftime bad.
Yeah, they were. They made a pretty impressive comeback. But I think Penn State's better than Wisconsin. If they can get a lead early, they're going to find a way to finish that ball game out and not let USC come in.
And especially after what we saw Penn State do to go into a place like Morgantown week 1, when they have a big win over there, I don't think they're going to be affected greatly by the amount of travel of this football game. It's a long way to travel from Pennsylvania to California. I think this is a 2-score game by the end of it. 2, maybe even 3.
And it kind of makes you laugh. CBS has not really had many. They're known for their 3:30 SEC games in the past. This year, outside of that USC Michigan game, which actually it was ugly, but it was good. Their 3:30 in the slot has been a bunch of clunkers, and this one could be another one.
Right. All right, Fresh, let's go to a big-time rivalry game, one of our favorite rivalry games, because guess what? Neither one of our favorite teams are attached to this. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Red River Shootout, the Red River Rivalry, the Red River whatever. We're going all the way to the Texas State Fair, to the Cotton Bowl. It's the Texas Longhorns. It's the Oklahoma Sooners. It's a high noon kickoff, 11 o'clock for them. A high noon for us on the East Coast here, Fresh. And right now, Texas is a 14-point favorite in this game. Over-under set 49.5 there. That's an interesting number, I think, there, because I think Texas's offense is better than what we saw at Tennessee. But I'll also say this, Fresh. We started off in the show a little bit off air. Quinn Ewers, what's going to happen with him? Right now, again, we're recording this early in the week. Technically, right now, they're saying that he is on track to play in this football game. But as you said while we were off air, Fresh, and I thought this was a great point, whether it's Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning, Texas is the favorite for a reason.
I mean, if they didn't have Arch Manning there, all right, we have some questions or some doubt. I don't think there's any fear if Ewers wasn't 100% ready to go. If they put Manning in there, would he perform? I started doing prep for this game because it didn't really cost me. I don't really need to do much prep. Oklahoma doesn't have Dylan Gabriel to save them. Oklahoma does not have Caleb Williams in this game to save them, which they had a couple of years ago. Hawkins is an eventful quarterback. He's very athletic and run. He did it. He made plays late versus Tennessee defense when they were up. He made plays versus a terrible Auburn defense. Texas's defense is better than both of them. How is he going to be able to function? There's also game film on him now. What's the second or third game? This is probably the third game they've had game film on Hawkins. They know what they're getting. Jackson Arnold, awful. Receivers haven't exactly been able to help him either. Anderson being injured out. They're just not getting the consistency in the passing game or the ground game to really help the quarterback either. It doesn't matter who it is. And we saw Gavin Sawchuk coming into the year. Has he even been relevant? No. It's just a lot of dysfunction on this Oklahoma offense. And last year they had Dylan Gabriel there. They were flowing. They had a groove. They had a feel for themselves. And even late, he needed to have the heroics to get them to come back, to get the W. I don't see where that comes from Oklahoma this year. The defense is good, but how much can they take against the Texas offense, which is so loaded? How much are they going to be on the field to be able to keep getting turnovers, keep getting stops, and not having offense score at all? When they went to Auburn, that offense against a terrible Auburn defense was not able to be consistent until they got the pick six late in the ballgame to keep them in it. It was an ugly game, and they were barely holding on. If they repeat that again, they're going to lose. And they're not going to lose in a painful fashion, because I tell you right now, Sark and the Texas fan base are tired of losing to Oklahoma. And they're going to make it personal. Last year, I think it hurt a lot. It almost kept them out of the playoff. Early on, there was kind of some doubt. They lost, all right, well, they beat Alabama, but they lost to Oklahoma. Where's the team going to hang out? And they got saved late. I don't think they want to leave it up for chance. They want to come here and take care of business and get it done, win a big rivalry game, set the tone, and keep themselves as the number one team in the country. If you were just playing, I expect a slower start, just getting back in the group of things, and then pulling away late. If Arch is playing, there might be an opening drive jitter, but I see them flowing a little bit quicker with him offensively because he has that groove and he's been playing the past couple of weeks and kind of has that repetition. Oklahoma, you have to throw some creative looks at these guys, be prepared, and offensively, you got to pull out every trick in the book, because your offense right now has just been run around, let Hawkins make some special happen, score a touchdown, and get out of there. You've got to add some layers to this offense, be explosive, add some trick plays, change the vision point of that defensive, front seven, change the vision point of that secondary. Because if you're just getting the straight looks, those Texas boys are going to run them down, and you're going to be competing against a very, very elite defense all afternoon. I have not seen anything from Oklahoma that tells me that they can compete in a shootout. Oklahoma's defense is very, very good. Oklahoma's offense is going to be, you're on a roller coaster, up once, down the next. Texas's offense right now, in all aspects, is better than Tennessee's. And if Arch is playing, I think it might be, like I mentioned earlier, if you were just fully ready to go and that guy's locked in, good night, Irene, he's going to be chucking it all over the yard. Either way, I think Texas wins. The spread and cover and how large depends if it's Ewers or Manning. I think Ewers is going to play. I think he's going to have a slow first quarter, and the second and third quarter, they're going to take off, and they're going to win 35-14, 35-17. It will be an ugly affair, but Texas fight will be played a lot.
Fresh, I hope Ewers does play in this football game. I really do hope that they announce later in the week that he is playing in this football game. Not that I don't want to see Arch in this game, because that would be nice too. But I would like to see Ewers because, again, I thought he had a good chance to win the Heisman. I think that's kind of off the table now with this injury. I don't think he's going to be able to put up some of the stats, and especially with guys like Genty blowing up and some of the other players that what they're doing at their respective programs. I think that this is the possibility, because while the question is on Oklahoma's side for the offensive side of the football, the defense is still solid. I think that they'll be on the field way too long in this football game. They'll get worn out. It's a lot. To me, it sounds like living in New York City. Maybe you're a high-fluting fashion buyer for some major company in New York, and you do this all these years. And then you kind of go I don't want to do that anymore because it's not as impersonal. So I'm just going to go off and I'm going to work with, kids or something like that. And you kind of just get worn down. And that's kind of how I feel about this Oklahoma defense. I think we're really great. We're really great. We're this name brand. And now we're just kind of okay, we're worn out of doing that. We need to try to do something else. And for them to do something else, the offense has got to pick up their side of the football there. The one thing that I think is concerning for me with Texas, and again, I would question Sark as a coach if this is an issue. If Texas is looking ahead, is Texas looking ahead to that matchup with Georgia 2 weeks from now, and them and going, we got to get ready for Georgia coming into Austin here. Oh, it's Oklahoma. They're not the Oklahoma of old. We can kind of sleepwalk into this football game. Those are the type of times where you get yourself in trouble because, again, like you said here, yeah, Jackson Arnold, not as good as we thought he is. Michael Hawkins is electric. He does have that flash and sizzle with him, and he is only a freshman. So, yeah, there's a little bit of tape out on him, but not a ton. Javante Barnes has showed times where he's been pretty solid as well. And again, what if you're looking ahead and all of a sudden Quinn Ewers throws 3 interceptions in this game and you're giving Oklahoma a short field on 3 different occasions? That's the time where a rivalry game like this, where you're letting Oklahoma hang around. It's like the scene. It's like the ending scene from Rounders, hanging around. He's got alligator blood. I can't get rid of him here. That's what I'm wondering about Oklahoma. Are they able to hang around late? Because if they're able to hang around late, I think they might have like that puncher's chance in this. If Texas comes in and goes, we're going to put the boots to them in the first and second quarter, we're Texas, we're better than them. Yeah, let's take care of business right now. We'll go get some funnel cake. We'll go get an elephant ear, maybe a corn dog during halftime. We can kind of like relax on the sideline for the Texas State Fair. Someone get the cotton candy out there. And then we can worry about Georgia after the game's over. But again, that's all got to be with Texas there. That'd be the only thing I'm concerned about.
I can see the look ahead as being an interesting point. Do you know that this is the 44th time that in this rivalry that both teams came out of the game ranked in the AP Top 25?
Oh, I'm sure. These are 2 blue blood types of program.
We kind of look at it like there's other rivalries, like USC, Notre Dame, that's probably a lot, but the Iron Bowl doesn't have as many events because usually it's Alabama ranked and Auburn not. But having 2 powerful programs coming at it, there's going to be pride in the line, but I just think Texas has more weapons. Oklahoma, this might be the last straw for us the rest of the year, and then just sort of fading off too. Because we even mentioned before the year, their schedule was ridiculously difficult. And do they have enough weapons offensively and defensively to keep going the entire year? If they don't get the W here, I think the wheels kind of fall off as the rest of the season progresses.
Right. Well, at least they have the Texas State Fair to cheer them up afterwards. Fresh at a fair, what's your go-to like food at a state fair?
Oh, at a fair. I'd say corn dogs. Corn dogs are good.
You like corn dogs? Yeah. We had these things up in Ohio when we go to a state fair or a festival, what have you, because a bunch of little town festivals here called Oh Boy Burgers. They're also known as the Woolly Bear Burger. And this may be Woolly Bear Weekend, largest one-day festival in the state of Ohio, Woolly Bear Festival. But the Oh Boy Burgers, and they're called the Oh Boy because you took a bite out of them and you're like, oh boy, this is a good burger. But and it's the best time, man. Listen. Woolly Bear Festival, Fresh. Come on.
I just love we always say, oh boy. Like,
yeah. Oh boy. That's good. And again, back in the day, I always tell you about Dairy Dock ice cream, man. If you have never had Dairy Dock ice cream, live up in Northern Ohio, make sure you go to Dairy Dock. But they used to do orange and chocolate swirl ice cream, which was delicious back during Woolly Bear Festival when I was a kid. But
it's nice little, yeah, okay.
This is a bucket list game for me someday, Fresh. I want to go to Texas State Fair, and I want to see Oklahoma and Texas someday.
Well, sounds like a trip.
I'm down. All right, Fresh. We got the biggest game of the weekend, though. Our final game here, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They are traveling across the country. They're going to Eugene, Oregon, and they're going to be playing the Oregon Ducks. Both teams 5-0. Both teams 2-0 in the conference. Ohio State is a 3-point road favorite in this game. Over-under is set at 53.5. I think the over will probably come in this one as well. Fresh, what you got for us, Ohio State, Oregon?
First off, can Dan Lanning finally win a big game? You were brought to Oregon from Georgia to win big games, not just to win games, but to win games that matter. And this is one of those. You lost 3 to Washington so far in your 2 years there, including a Pac-12 title game. You haven't made the playoff yet. You haven't made, your bowl games were like average bowl games. We need to see it, Dan. You brought, Dylan Gabriel up to Eugene. You've been recruiting, going in transfer portal, getting guys in the front seven, in the secondary, receivers. This is when we need to see Oregon take care of business. If you don't show up, the questions are getting asked about you. Were you worth all the money? Are your recruits actually being coached and developed? Are you just getting flashy stuff on signing day and really just, you're going to get talent, but is the talent actually good enough to get it done at an elite level, at a national level? So that's the biggest thing. The pressure I think on Dan Lanning is, is he the right guy on a game day coaching situation? He can recruit the heck out of anything. You put him, and he can recruit with anybody else in the country, but getting them to take that next step in a big game, coaching wise, situational awareness, clock management, etc. That is what I want to see. They've come close in all 3 affairs with Washington. That's probably the best parameter, best gauge of where, of a big game for him, but they never got over the top. There's always the yeah, but. This is the chance for you to take that massive leap versus Ohio State, which is a very, very talented Ohio State football team. You're at home. The crowd will be, I think Ohio State's going to travel. There are going to be fans in the stands, but that's going to be a pretty solid fan base giving you support. How do you build off that? A Mario Cristobal team without the 2 best defensive players and Anthony Brown at quarterback went into the big house and beat an Ohio State football team not too long ago, a couple of years ago, actually. If they could do it, your expectation is you have to get this win. And that right there, because Mario Cristobal, as we all know, probably not the greatest football coach. He can recruit. That was his big, he got him some Rose Bowls out there. He got them that big game in the shoe. If he could do it, Dan, now that's the parameter, that's the bar that's been set that you have to match. Can you get it done? Ohio State, this is your first true test. I mean, this is it. Go out there and put on a show. I'm not gonna lie. Nobody has paid attention to Ohio State up to this point because there's no need to. Nobody, unless you're a Ohio State fan, you're not switching over to must-watch TV to watch them play Iowa or Michigan State or Kent State or Western whoever this for the MAC or whoever that for the MAC. Nobody cares. The only reason people are turning into Ohio State is to watch Jeremiah Smith. But now everyone's coming in to watch Ryan Day, Will Howard, Judkins, Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, and the entire Jim Knowles defense. This is the game that the Buckeyes got to show up. It's not a playoff game. It's not the end of the world. But if they look rough, if they clunk, if they lose, Ryan Day's going to be answering some questions. And that actually might be, if the offense struggles, Chip Kelly's going to be answering some questions. There's a lot of pressure from that perspective of, all right, now it's showtime. We've got to bring it all together. We've had 5 weeks of preseason games. Now we need to take that next step. Will Howard has been battle tested in his career. He was at Kansas State. He beat TCU in the Big 12 title game. He played Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. They got smoked, but he's had big affairs. This actually might be his biggest game ever. And he's had experience in the past. You got 2 running backs, lean on them. You got a great offensive line, lean on them. Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka, Carnell Tate in the slot. You got talent everywhere. Let the game come to you. Don't try to do too much. That Jim Knowles defense is going to be flying around making plays. That defensive front seven is going to be there. This is going to be whichever quarterback makes a mistake. Because both have talent at the receiver spot. I think obviously Ohio State has much better running back depth. I'll even give the nod quarterback-wise to Dylan Gabriel. So you have the balance there. Offensive lines, I'm going to say Ohio State's better. So Ohio State has the advantage across the board. This is a game they should win. Can they? Do they have the intangibles? Do they have the fortitude? Do we get a Ryan Day coaching in a college football playoff game where I think they were very successful? Or do we get a Ryan Day coaching versus Michigan the past few years where there's always a couple clinker calls where you're kind of like, was the team prepared for this? Are they truly ready for this game? Or is just something missing? Where is his head at? Where's his coaching staff at? Where are the guys at? They've been preparing. They've been ready. I want to see it. People might think, oh, you want Ohio State to lose. You know what? No, I actually want Ohio State to win because they have the talent. And sometimes these players have got to actually drive themselves and say, you know what, coaches, screw you. We need to be player driven. We're going to do it ourselves. Stop. And you know what? I actually think in the Peach Bowl versus Georgia, that was a much more CJ Stroud player led effort than it was Ryan Day coaching. You saw players playing faster in that ball game. And that's the kind of mentality I think they have to have here in Eugene. Play faster, ignore Ryan Day for some of it, and just play your natural ability. Lock in, be aggressive, play smart. Don't overthink it. A key player for this game, Jordan James for Oregon. He's going to have to run the ball hard. He's going to have to run the ball successfully to keep that Ohio State offense on the sideline and maintain drives. Dylan Gabriel's not going to be able to run away from these Ohio State defenders. They're going to be locked on as receivers. He's got to make some tight throws, but the running game is there. It opens them stuff up. If Jordan James can't run with effective, prowess and cannot hit the hole, there's the pass rush going to start getting there. They're going to start creeping up. It's going to be a long, long day for Dylan Gabriel, and Ohio State potentially could blow him out. So Jordan James, if you cannot run the ball, and the offensive line for Oregon cannot pop some holes, it's going to be a long affair and a long night out there in Eugene. In the end, Ohio State wins by 10. This Buckeye team, they know what's in front of them. They know the pressure's there. It's basically an all or nothing season, and they have to start it here this Saturday in Eugene with a big dub, and set the tone going forward. The winner of this game is guaranteed a playoff spot. They'll lock it in. And Ohio State will do that with force and win by 10 plus.
Fresh, I've circled this game since the start of the season, being an Ohio State fan. I want some payback for a couple years ago. We were a brand new podcast when Oregon came into the Horseshoe and absolutely manhandled the Buckeyes. One of probably the most frustrated you would ever hear me on this podcast is I came onto this show and I ripped the Ohio State defense and the secondary led by Kerry Combs that day. And I said that it was an absolute joke. It was a travesty. Great job out Oregon. But I was annoyed. I was very, very frustrated and annoyed. And I called them out. I called this Ohio State. This is not the silver bullet defense. Fast forward to this. During that season, Jim Knowles had taken the Oklahoma State defense and made them the top tier defense in the league. Ohio State statistically right now is the number one defense in the country with yards per game and with points. They are also have 17 sacks on the season. Now, have they played the toughest competition? You're right. No, they haven't played the toughest competition they have. They have played Iowa and Michigan State, two upstart kind of plucky teams is what I call them. They're in the middle of the road teams as well.
I like the word plucky.
Plucky. But you dominated both of those. My concern with this Ohio State team is are you going to be able to get going in this? Are you going to be able to weather the storm? If I'm Oregon in this football game, if I win the toss, I'm taking the football. I know statistically it's better to defer to the second half, but in this type of game, I want the football and I want to try to score. Because what you want to do is score on that opening drive against Ohio State and say, hey, we're here to play. You can't start slow. We're going to put the pressure on you. With Ohio State, it's doing what you've done every single game this year. A couple weeks ago, they're playing Michigan State. Michigan State, again, plucky team. We talked about Aiden Childs over there. They're doing some good things over at Michigan State. we have a lot of respect for Coach Smith over there, thinking that they're eventually going to turn that whole thing around. And Ohio State dominated that football game. You know, Iowa's offense is pretty inept. They looked even worse last week, but they do have Caleb Johnson, who is probably one of the higher rated running backs going into the NFL draft this year when you talk to a lot of draft scouts. Again, able to shut him down, but again, Iowa has zero passing game whatsoever. I went back and when I was doing my research, the game I looked at with Oregon, I went back and I looked at that Boise State game. Because Boise State was able to go into Eugene and they were able to give the Ducks everything they're able to handle. Genty had 25 carries for over 190 yards rushing, a couple scores in that game. And I sat there thinking, I'm going, Genty to me right now is the cream of the crop running back. But Quishon Judkins and Travion Henderson, because you can do a 1-2 punch, you could really wear down and run on this Oregon team. That's going to be my question for Dan Lanning. Are you able to stop the run when you know that Ohio State is going to line it up? They're going to hit you in the mouth. And don't think that this game doesn't mean a whole lot to Chip Kelly, too. Chip Kelly's going back to Oregon and wants to go in and go, I'm going to put up points on the Ducks coming back into town here.
Make them wish they had that offense again.
Right. Here is the other kind of side factor. Will Howard this year at Kansas State, Will Howard ran the ball a little bit more than where he's at right now. He only has 24 carries for 64 yards. Do we see a few more design quarterback runs in this football game? Will Howard, I've been impressed with. This is an even better version. I liked him at Kansas State. This is an even better version of him. He's completing almost 72% of his passes, only 3 interceptions, only taken 2 sacks on the year. That's huge for this. But the real fun question we get to ask, what kind of game does Jeremiah Smith have? If anything, if you're going to tune into this football game, tune in to see Ohio State number 4, Jeremiah freaking Smith. He is an absolute monster. Ryan Williams, major props to him. But all they ever say is, do you know he's 17 already right now? Yeah, he's a great football player. Give him some credit, but everyone wants to focus on his age. With Jeremiah Smith, they go, have you seen his one-handed catches? To the point, Fresh, this guy is so exciting that my mom, he has become my mother's favorite Ohio State player. She goes, where's my guy? I go, who's your guy? Number 4. Didn't know his name. And then we go, his name's Jeremiah Smith. Named Jeremiah Smith. Yeah, okay. So Jeremiah Smith is her guy. I've never been this excited about a wide receiver probably since the days Tengia Jr. What is he going to do in this game? And is the Ohio State defense going to be able to get after Dylan Gabriel? If they're able to get after Dylan Gabriel, it's going to be good night, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Dylan Gabriel was notorious at UCF and Oklahoma for taking a lot of unnecessary sacks. Is he able to do that in this game? Oregon, you got the receivers. Tez Johnson's been absolutely phenomenal for them. Give him a lot of credit there. Need to see more out of a guy like Evan Stewart, but Holden's been kind of like that nice complementary piece. Again, what is going to be the identity of Oregon in this football game? Fresh, I hope you're right. This game makes me nervous. I hate going into environments like Eugene because I know that Oregon's going to play Ohio State close. This game's not going to be decided until probably midway through the fourth quarter, late into the fourth quarter. I got Ohio State. I'll take Ohio State in the points here. I'll have Ohio State cover the spread. I would love to see a double-digit win, but I'll be satisfied for a touchdown win here. Get out of Eugene, hand the Ducks their first loss, and Ohio State just moves on to the next and what they got going on.
You know, I like how you brought up Jeremiah Smith because the other side, Dan Lanning went out in the transfer portal, got Jabbar Muhammad, the starting corner from Washington, to come over to Oregon. This could be a game where he makes some money and gets himself ready for the draft, or he gets exposed and it could hurt. Like, I think if he's overthinking the game because of financial potential in the future in the NFL, he's going to get toasted. he's got to just lock in and cover up number 4 because there's going to be a spotlight on him. And if you want to be a big time NFL corner, you've got to lock down the big time receiver. So this is a matchup inside of a matchup is if Muhammad is trailing Smith, and how does he limit those opportunities? Because if he gets shut down, if he can be able to contain Jeremiah Smith, he's in a great spot. Not gonna say it's going to win or lose the ball game, but that's not a manageable, situation there for him and his future and in that defense and also the NFL perspective. If Jeremiah Smith comes in there and toasts him, that might look pretty bad on his draft resume.
Right. Absolutely. I'm excited for this football game. I can't wait to see this one. We'll see how I'm feeling after the game there. I know that I'm going to be living on the edge of my seat, and hopefully I have power after this hurricane and everything. So we'll see how it goes here, Fresh. It's an exciting time to be alive here. It's an exciting time for these football games here. Let's go to our brown water bets for the weekend. We only got 2 right now here, Fresh. So, hey, maybe we'll release a 3rd one on social media this weekend. So maybe you want to follow us over there. Fresh, what game you got for brown water?
I'm looking at the Cal Bears traveling to play the Pitt Panthers. I think it's going to be a fun one. Looking at wins and losses, I think both teams are going to be matching it pretty well, but scoring the ball will be very productive in this football game. I'm taking the over 59.5 total in the game.
I'm taking Pitt at -3. I think that's kind of like a guarantee there. Cal is got the offense to kind of hang with them, but again, they have to complete. They had a huge back and forth game last week with Miami. I think this is definitely poised for a letdown game where Pitt just kind of runs away with this game. So I'd be hammering that -3.
Yeah, I think Cade Bell's offense and Eli Holtz are going to be throwing the ball over the yard there in Pittsburgh.
Right. All right, Fresh. Well, I went out to the Mountain West Conference, the San Jose State Spartans. They're going to play the Colorado State Rams in this game. San Jose State is a road favorite in this football game. Their only loss is a 2-point loss to Washington State right now, and they put up a ton of points against the Cougars. Colorado State is definitely not the Cougars this year. The Rams are not the Cougars. Guess what? I'm going to take San Jose, and right now it's at -1.5. So give me the road favorite Spartans to beat the Rams.
I have a bunch of good buddies who are all Colorado State alums. I've been to FOCO. It's a really cool town. A lot of great, amazing brewers there. I'm seeing the Rams +100 to win. I'm going to take the home squad. Go Rams, get it done. +100 to win.
You're taking straight money line. Nice.
Straight money line.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a long grind with it, but this is one of the best weekends of college football here. You've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. Before you head out of here, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Make sure you're checking out SpinnableSports.com because the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of SpinnableSports.com. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in the track of Hurricane Milton, please stay safe out there. Please make sure that you're heeding all warnings out there. And hopefully there's very little destruction, but this is a very powerful hurricane. So make sure you're staying safe out there. We really do want, you guys to be able to enjoy college football. Follow us on the socials. And that's all I got, Fresh.
Everybody, another great weekend of college football heading toward us. Like Seth said, if you're in past the hurricane, please stay safe. Recovery efforts, work through it, make sure you have your supplies. And we're here for you at all times. Listen to the podcast, spread the word. Hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on, YouTube channel. We're growing one day at a time. Enjoy football season. And with that, bye y'all.